The midday sun beat down on the cracked pavement outside Jake Nolan's tiny garage on the edge of Desert Ridge, Arizona. It was the kind of heat that melted tool handles and made engines hiss even before they turned over. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow, grease smudging across his forehead, and leaned under the lifted hood of an old pickup. He heard the sound before he saw it, metal clanking, engines sputtering, tires grinding to a halt. He turned just as a sleek black SUV rolled into his lot, steam hissing from beneath its hood. Out stepped a woman, clearly frazzled but polite, and two young kids in the back seat staring wide-eyed at the unfamiliar surroundings. "Excuse me, sir," she called out. "We broke down on our way to a family event. Is there any chance you could take a look?" Jake gave her a small nod. "Let's see what we've got." As he walked over, another door opened, and a sharply dressed man in a suit stepped out, frustration written all over his face. He was pacing, cell phone glued to his ear, barking something about delays and missing the hotel check-in. Jake hardly looked at him. Men like that didn't usually talk to mechanics unless it was to demand a discount. He popped the hood, crouched down, and began inspecting the engine. Noah, Jake's 8-year-old son, peeked out from inside the garage. "You need help, Dad?" "Grab my tool roll, buddy," Jake said without looking up. The woman smiled at Noah. "He helps you out a lot." Jake chuckled softly. "Always does, my right-hand man." As Jake tightened a bolt and examined the fan belt, the suited man stopped pacing. His gaze lingered on Jake, longer than it should have. Something about him looked familiar. The man walked closer, peering down at Jake's face. "You're Jake Nolan, right?" Jake paused, his jaw tightening slightly. "Yeah, you know me?" The man's brow furrowed. "You used to work for Whitmore Auto Services in Phoenix, right?" Jake stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. "Yeah, until they laid off half the shop 2 years ago." The man extended a stiff hand. "I'm Charles Whitmore." Jake stared at the hand for a second, then shook it out of courtesy. "Didn't recognize you without the office walls and polished floors." Whitmore looked momentarily uncomfortable. "Yeah, well, small world." Jake turned back to the engine without another word, his movements calm, precise. He didn't need to dredge up the past. All he cared about now was fixing this car and getting the family back on the road. He didn't know that this small act of service was about to reopen a door he thought was long closed, one that could change his and his son's life in ways he never expected. Jake tightened the last bolt and closed the SUV's hood with a firm thunk. He glanced at the woman and nodded. "You're good to go. Replace the serpentine belt. It was nearly shredded." The woman looked relieved. "Thank you so much. How much do we owe you?" Jake scratched the back of his neck. $70 should cover the part and labor. Before the woman could respond, Charles Whitmore stepped in, pulling out his wallet. "Let me handle it." Jake didn't say a word as Whitmore handed him a $100 bill. "Keep the change," he said, then hesitated. "Look, I want to say something." Jake raised an eyebrow. "When we let go of half the team 2 years ago, it wasn't personal. It was corporate pressure, numbers, margins, shareholders. You know how it is." Jake folded the bill and tucked it into his back pocket. "Yeah, and I also know I had to sell my truck, pull my son out of private school, and work 16-hour days to keep this garage afloat." Whitmore shifted awkwardly. "You've done well. You turned something small into something honest." Jake looked over at Noah, who was now playing with the 2 children near the garage steps. "I did what I had to do. He depends on me." There was a silence between the 2 men. Then Whitmore pulled a card from his coat and extended it. "I don't do this often," he said, "but we've been struggling with reliability and leadership at a few branches. I need someone who knows what real work looks like, someone I can trust. If you ever want to come back in a managerial role, the offer's open." Jake didn't take the card immediately. He looked at it, then at his garage, then at Noah. "Why me?" he asked. "You've got a dozen Ivy League guys in suits." Whitmore smiled faintly. "None of them would have gotten under that car in this heat without asking for a contract first. You didn't even know who we were. You just fixed the problem. That's rare." Jake finally took the card but didn't say anything. The family loaded back into the SUV, and before leaving, the woman rolled down the window. "Thank you again, Jake. You really saved us." Jake nodded. "Take care." As they drove off, Jake stood by the garage door, the business card warm in his hand. Noah came up beside him, sipping a juice box. "Who was that guy?" Noah asked. Jake smiled. "Someone who used to think I wasn't good enough." Noah looked up. "Are you going to work for him?" Jake stared at the dusty road, then at his small garage, the place he built with his bare hands. "I don't know yet," he said, "but it's nice to finally have the choice." He tucked the card into his shirt pocket and ruffled Noah's hair. Sometimes life brings you full circle, and if you've held on to your integrity, that circle just might lead to something bigger than you ever imagined.